Another beta build, another week, another Mythic Plus update. First of all, I'm going to TLDR my last video that talked about the last affixes. They were bad, everyone knew they were bad, everyone told Blizzard they were bad. Blizzard, listen, they're gone. They threw that shit out the window. Rightfully so, because I don't think anyone would have told you they were a good idea. But what they're doing now is a huge step in the right direction, but there's still some... Well, I'm going to dive into it. First things first, they also heard the feedback that Sanguini was bad. And that's gone too. Like, now they've gotten rid of all the bad affixes at this point. All the affixes everybody hates. Gone. Huge win. I'm glad. Everyone's glad. The ones they were gonna add, gone. Bad. Then new affix. They have Zaltat's Bargain Ascended and Valzat Bargain Frenzied. Now, we haven't seen Frenzied yet because right now Ascended is up in the test pool, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But this is a Kiss Curse affix, which basically says you do it well, it buffs you. You do it bad, it buffs the enemies. But the catch-22 is that the affix actually goes away in high keys. And instead, high keys are just harder, with no Kiss Curse affix. So that's good because the Kiss Curse affix would have been make or break a run for pushers. They recognize that affixes like that are not good for pushing. They're just kind of fun for the lower keys, which, make no mistake, is the 99% percentile. You know, these 12s and above, that's for the 1%. The majority of players will be using these new affixes. Now, I can't say much about this affix yet because we haven't seen it, so I'm really not going to talk about it. But Zaltat's Bargain, we know how it works. I've already gone into the logs and seen it. Every 60 seconds, while you're in combat, 20 orbs spawn that you either have to interrupt or dispel with magic. Like a mass dispel is pretty good. Shadow Priest's stock's going up right now. Or people with AoE stops, you know. Shockwave is probably pretty good. Assuming they can be interrupted with stops and not just hard interrupts. I imagine stops work because of 20 orbs. I doubt they expect you to use 20 hard interrupts to deal with it. I think they're making AoE stops useful again after just making them not useful, as I talked about in my previous video. A quick TLDR of that is stops no longer put abilities on cooldowns for regular casts. So if you Shockwave or Stormbolt a mob, they recast immediately when the stun fades, because the cooldown now only starts if the spell is successfully cast or it's successfully interrupted with a hard interrupt. So stops lost their value to some degree. So this affix is good in a way that it gives the stop... Like, this is clearly the place to use the stops now. You're going to want to use it here because you get the most buff. 20 orbs spawn, that's where you use your Shockwave, because that's where you're going to get a crap ton of damage. Now, we have more context to how this works. Here. The orbs spawn. I'm going to open up a clip.
But isn't it... You shouldn't be worrying about how high key players will interact with how low key affixes.
Yoda actually already made a post on the WoW forum saying he doesn't like it.
Holy.
But it's not made for him though, right? It's,
There they are.
Affixes are like almost exclusively made for...
It literally is 20 orbs, and if you disrupt them or dispel them, you get buffs. If you don't, the enemies get buffs. That's pretty much how it works, and that happens every 60 seconds in combat. When you're out of combat, the timer pauses based on what I've seen in the log digging here. But here's the contradiction that's bothering me about this affix. Literally, in not one but 2 interviews, they specifically mention no additional nameplates from affixes. They're trying to reduce clutter. Need I say more? The Affix isn't terrible, but it literally contradicts what they said a week ago, 2 weeks ago. And 20 spawn at once? That's the very definition of clutter. That's a clusterfuck. Like, you're gonna have to use add-ons to clean this up. You're gonna have to make a player profile that says, don't show me these 20 nameplates so I can actually see the other mobs that you're fighting. You need to see their casts. The casts that are actually gonna one-shot and kill you in a key. So, I don't agree with the nameplate clutter. I think they need to rethink the affix a little bit. At least a lot less orbs. 20 is excessive. Because it's literally 20. You can see right here at 135, orb 1 through 20. Then here we go again. 246, orb 21 through 40. 416, orb 41 through 60. You get the idea. It's always 20 orbs. I don't want 20 nameplates on my screen ever. And I feel like there's this thing with Blizzard where the left hand and the right hand are not talking to each other. And it's frustrating sometimes. Like, you can't say one thing and do the opposite a week later. I do think they're moving in the right direction. At least with this. I'm moving on. I've had my speech about nameplates. I don't want nameplate clutter. I don't want Blizzard to acknowledge that they said they don't want it either. So they need to fix it. Maybe they can make it so the orbs just don't have a nameplate. So you don't need an add-on to fix something that's should just not be cluttering the base UI in the first place. But moving on to the next part. Fortified and Tyrannical. Starting with this new system, if you're doing a +10, a +10 is just always going to be Tyrannical and Fortified are activated. This is terrible. Absolutely terrible. One big gameplay component of Tyranical and Fortified was that in Fortified weeks, you used Hero on the toughest trash pull. On Tyranical, you used it on the toughest bosses. But if both of them are toughest every week, now all of a sudden it's a little bit more of a pain in the ass. It's probably easier to tune, but in the same time, if they're both active, you might as well just make them both inactive and just tune the bosses accordingly. Like, at this point, it's redundant. It's basically saying up to a 9, you have these keys, and up to a 10, suddenly there's a massive spike in difficulty that just is and will always be. There's no randomness, there's no rotation, it's just is. There is a rotation at 4. So 1 week it's going to be Fortified on the 4, and the next week it's going to be Tyrannical. Like it was in the past on lower keys. But once you get to this 10 point, it's really... Honestly, I've said it before. This affix should just be deleted. It makes tuning annoying, and it's just not really fun. Especially Tyrannical. I'm going to say Fortified, people don't mind it as much because they kind of are used to dealing with trash. Being the way it is anyway. And Fortified doesn't massively change it too much, except for maybe making some pulls not be a double that week. But for the most part, trash is consistently the same. But Tyrannical absolutely affects bosses in such an adverse way. They're longer, they're 30% longer for no real reason. It's just a time sink. Because when you make 30% longer on targets that are almost always single target, it's just, it eats your key. Like, let me tell you, like, on Fortified, the mobs having more health on trash, you kind of make it up. Because trash is still an AoE fest and you do big giga damage on trash. But bosses that have 30% more health, it's just... It's actually harder to time keys on Tyrannical week than Fortified week almost every time. Like, and well, at least I'll be consistent at 10 when they're both always up. Like I said, it has consistency going for it, but it's still... Tyranical sucks. And Fortified kind of sucks too when you think about it. Like, they both should just be thrown out the window, and they should just tune 10 plus accordingly in a meaningful way, and just not have these uninteresting affixes. And that's pretty much the Mythic Plus update. Some huge wins. You know, it basically starts with wins, but then it gets worse the further down you scroll. But I will say it's still 100 times better than last week. Everyone knows that. It's kind of one of those things where it's almost like it was planned. Last week they served you shit and vinegar mixed together and said, "Here's Mythic Plus." So this week, you know, they can serve you stale crackers and be like, "Damn, these crackers taste good," because, you know, it's not shit and vinegar this week. And that's the truth of it. You know, maybe at this point, we take this as a win because, you know, this is the point where it's better than it was. But, like, I still think Blizzard's missing the point on what people actually enjoy. Like, with Mythic Plus affixes, you know, like, some of the best affixes we ever had were ones that were complete gameplay changers, but in a fun, unique way. Like, I still say one of the best affixes they ever had was the Nyalotha portals, where you can portal in and defeat generals. That was the curse part, you know. It was this big elite mob you had to kill, and if you didn't, it punished you at the end of the dungeon. But if you did, the kiss part of that was that now you could use these unique portals as cool dungeon skips that completely changed the feel of the dungeon. Like, that is what players want. Orbs, 20 orbs that spawn every 60 seconds, where it's like, yeah, just have the Shadow Priest Mass dispel it or the Warrior Shockwave it, and then we get a buff. But, careful, because the nameplates will clutter your screen and you might miss an important interrupt. Like, eh. It's not a great affix. And players will, like, grit their teeth, smile, and be like, I guess we can accept it, but it's not great. And it's not achieving anything to really make it exciting, except for maybe the haste will feel good when you do successfully hit as many of the orbs as you can. But I'm talking in circles at this point. I just want to do a small update on this post because obviously I'm very invested in Mythic Plus. Even though I'm not a high key pusher, I still do like my weekly 20s before and now my weekly 10s now. And I may obviously make mods for this too. In fact, self-promo, I already pushed the mod update out that supports the new orb affixes. So it announces when they spawn, and there's a timer for the 60-second timer. But we can get that off the add-on websites using the alpha version. And self-promo, but I said what I wanted to say, and that's about it. And I'm not even going to edit this video because, fuck it, YOLO. I'm going to upload it just like this. And it's going to be ranty and rambly. It just is what it is. I just want to do a quick video at 2 o'clock in the morning, since I was busy all day and I didn't really get to this news until much later in the evening. So I'm probably the last person reporting on it too, but nonetheless, some people care about my take, and, well, I gave my take. But just one more time for the memes. And I'll leave it at that.